Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to look at another episode of SciShow. So, this one specifically is focusing on the history of the first vaccine. So this is an interesting video. A lot of us are told the plain story of the whole smallpox issue where you have Jenner, there's the name, who develops the first vaccine by noticing that milkmaids who had been exposed to cowpox didn't get smallpox. And this is, and he started inoculating people. No, that's not that's not the story. One, people have been doing that, or at least they had been taking parts of things like specifically the smallpox vaccine, that they had been weakening through various methods from acids to time, and inoculating people that way, over scraping their skin and putting some of the episodes, and having them had a weaker, basically they weakened the vaccine, so if people did get it, it was very much weaker and it wasn't going to kill you or dismember you, or not dismember, but disfigure you. And so that had been going on for, a couple hundred years prior to Jenner. And no, they were not, yes, they were everyone was pretty much very much aware that women, basically milkmaids who had been exposed to cowpox did not get smallpox. Yes, they were aware. They didn't know why, though. And they hadn't quite figured that out. That's what Jenner did. He kind of figured that out. But hi, Kendra. Really join me. Don't bite. It's a calico. She's annoying. She's frequently in these videos. So this is kind of an interesting. It talks about the history of vaccines and essentially inoculation, which is what they had been doing prior to that. Even Jenner wasn't. He was inoculating people. He wasn't doing what we would consider developing a vaccine. He was taking bits of cowpox from cows and basically scratching people's skin and putting some of that on there so it got into their bloodstream. And that's what he was doing. This had been being done prior to this. Well, not with cowpox, but with weakened versions of smallpox to inoculate smallpox. So, strangely enough, Cotton Mather, who's better known for being a moron and being involved in, the Salem witch trials. And he learned about this from it going on in England, which is what was going on. You had this noble woman they talk about who was in, I believe she was in India, and or Africa, and she noticed this is something that they were doing, and she brought it back. And she noticed these people weren't getting as sick, so she brought it back, and they started doing it in the UK. Mather found out about it, and in an effort to improve his reputation after the disaster that was the Salem witch trials, and basically when that was shut down as absolute utter nonsense, and yeah, you were responsible for killing a bunch of people and creating a frenzy for no good reason. Yeah. He was trying to improve his reputation, and they did this, and it worked. So, and again, this was all where they were using a weakened form of smallpox. And smallpox was just one of the main diseases they were going after. In the video they talked about a couple of other things that they were trying to inoculate against. But this is inoculation. They did not understand germ theory at that time. This was very much, okay, people seem to, if we weaken this a little bit, people who get a weakened form of it and don't get as sick seem to be better, and they don't get sick again. So if we can give other people this, let's see what happens. And trial and error for a couple hundred years in Africa and India and Asia, that they were doing this. And then it got brought to Europe, and then eventually over to the Americas. So, but it was Jenner who tried it with cowpox, who thought maybe that will help people against smallpox. So by giving a different disease that's weaker. So again, he didn't fully understand what the heck he was doing. Well, because again, germ theory we didn't understand that. And then, of course, now what we do is there are certain things, what we call a live virus, which is what the MMR is, the measles, mumps, rubella. Sometimes people do the MMRV, which is they add varicella on there. Varicella is also, which is chickenpox, is also a live vaccine. Basically, it's a weakened form of the vaccine, of the disease, of the virus that can't make you sick, but it does the same thing. It helps inoculate you. It basically helps you act like a vaccine, keep you safe from getting the disease. Polio is similar. I don't think polio is a live vaccine as well. A lot of them are. We're dealing with these RNA vaccines as well, which are new, which are not live, but that's not part of this. This is talking about the history of the first vaccines, which is really interesting because, again, a lot of us get that Jenner story, which is not the truth by any stretch of the imagination. So this video, again, it's SciShow. It is, let's see how old this is. I try to figure out. It's only about 11 minutes, 14 seconds long. So it's not that long. And it looks to be about 2 years old. So it's not compared to one of the other videos where I did on narwhals, which was like 10 years. This is relatively new. So it's a very interesting video when you're studying vaccines, when you're looking at the history, to watch this kind of short, little over 10-minute video on the history of the first vaccines and how interesting and how it really developed. So it's a very interesting video, and I really do like SciShow. I watch this stuff on my own. I am going to be covering a bit more vaccine stuff from them, as well as a partner of them, which is Healthcare Triage. So I will be covering that as well. So if you like what you see, be sure to check out the rest of the channel. I am covering vaccines right now. I will be covering unicorns. I always have a tendency to cover Irish stuff in March. I'm covering the Caribbean American history stuff. I'm going to be covering musicals soon. That's coming up. I'm trying to think of what else I've covered. I'm doing various book series this year, from The Princess Diaries to more appears to The Guardians of Ga'Hoole, which I believe is what's going on right now, to another Meg Cabot series going back to Catherine Lashley, which is The Guardian of the Ga'Hoole. And then tentatively 2024, we're looking at just playing in my head again. This is January. It's already playing in my head. I'm probably going to do Animorphs, and then I'm going to look at the Anne of Green Gables. I'm going to go back and revisit the Anne of Green Gables in a little bit more detail. So, I have a small child, and it's almost 8 o'clock at night. So, and she's been bathing and taking forever in the bath, so she's not getting to bed till like 7 something. If you like what you see, again, like and subscribe, and leave a positive comment if you have one. Thank you.